I've always felt spiritually gifted. When did I realize it? I think, growing up, I've always had instances where, I knew things were going to happen, or being sensitive to energy or other people in different ways that other people didn't seem to be as affected. But I think I really had my spiritual awakening, the drastic, awakening of all of this stuff and the gifts that I have now that I'm using as a way to work, as a career, really happened in August. So it hasn't been very long, August 2019. I was what I thought was my comfortable, normal self. And then I went on this sort of retreat to learn how to help people process trauma. It was a talk therapy type of learning process. And on my way there, I started feeling things were like building up. Once I got there, I went from like 0 to 100, where I was 100% connected with spirit. At the time, I wasn't sure who or what I was talking to or experiencing. I just knew that I was receiving messages from the other side, and they were helping me help the clients or the other students of the retreat that I was able to help them, that the way that they needed to be helped by talking and experiencing it through the spirit above on the other side. I have to say that when I came back from the retreat, I tried to go back to normal life as a massage therapist, and I started getting these signs that I had to quit my job, and I was getting them. I got like 4 signs before I even made it into the spa, and I kept ignoring them because I was like, no, I have to have a job. I need to make money. I need to be normal and be, I just went to school for like 2 years and spent thousands of dollars on becoming a licensed massage therapist. I need to do this. You're not going to stop me. But it was so strong at that point. I went into work, and they physically kind of took over my body and wouldn't let me work. And I said, well, I'm going to work anyway. It was like 5 minutes before I'm walking into this room to do a pregnancy massage. And they made me feel what the owner's energy was over money and like their greed. And so it was so gross. It felt disgusting that I was working for such greedy people and I wasn't getting compensated enough for what the energy put out I was giving. So after having that feeling, I was like, well, I can't really control what's going on right now, and I can't walk into a room with a pregnant lady and massage her and talk to spirits because they're gonna have me tell her, stuff that she probably doesn't want to hear. So I didn't really have a choice, and I quit. I walked out, and I had to just kind of what I call like coming out of the spiritual closet. And I told my family, and they thought I was crazy. My sister said I needed to be locked up, and that, there was something really wrong with me, and that I was bipolar and I was crazy. And it kind of, it affected me a lot, not only from family, but I had also started seeing friends not really communicate with me anymore. They just kind of started dropping off like flies. And we can definitely go into that deeper later if you want. But there's a shift that happens when you start changing and start living more authentically. And one of the main things that happens to us is that we lose friends, we lose connections with people, we lose jobs. Stuff starts happening. The good thing was that it put me coming out of my spiritual closet really forced my parents to be forced with a decision. They either had to go along with me for the ride or completely reject me. And I was completely astonished that they both embraced me in their own way. And now we have like the most amazing relationship. I have a very good relationship with both of them now. So I had to do I did like 10 readings for free just to like kind of figure stuff out, like how I'm gonna make this a career. And then from there, I was like, I can't look back. And I would never go back. Yeah, so the way I communicate with energy is really what I just say energy, because everything's energy. So the way I communicate with energy is through all the clairs, what they call it. I can see things, kind of in my mind's eye. Is it like, it's like a memory, like if you're closing your eyes and you can have memories pop into your head. It's kind of like that, only it's instantaneous and I'm not having any thoughts behind it. So it pops in my head. So I can see things, I can hear things, I can smell things, I can taste things, and I can feel it. So I have all of the things. And other people like me, we're all very different. So we all, some people will have more of one than the other. Some people, it's metaphorical things or literal, or it's just like art. I really think it's an art form. It's really how we like our paintbrushes. It's definitely changed a little bit since it started. It was very dramatic at first. The way that I experienced it was very physical. It also is energetic, so I could feel kind of tingling on the top of my head, and then I would get a rush of like warmth. I still get that when I talk to spirits or energy. I still feel the warmth, only not as dramatic, where I would be sweating through my clothes like instantly when I first became in with this gift. The physical also kind of has been, it's been slowly integrating. I'm still integrating into it. I'm still working on, perfecting it. It's kind of like any other skill that you would practice. It's, you learn something and then you kind of have to integrate it into your personality, into your life, and see like how it changes over time. I do feel that from my experience that where they're located in my kind of sensory, information is related somehow, sometimes to that kind of stuff. I can't really explain it, although I'd have to like do more research or maybe ask them more questions, because I have asked them questions. Why are you feeling that? And I can feel their pain and suffering. So I know that's how I can kind of connect to them. I can feel their pain and how dark. So I don't want to say that they're dark energy, because I think a lot of people get scared by that. And I think that that's one thing that I've never been scared at, because I've felt so low before, and I've had those feelings of depression and that dark energy, that it's really, that they're not bad energies, that they are just stuck in that. And there's always a way for us to get lighter or come to the light or raise our vibration, if you're alive on earth or if you've passed. I truly believe, and it's been scientifically starting to be proven now, that trauma is stored in our body physically. There's the most amazing book that completely changed my life called The Body Keeps the Score. I don't want to butcher his name, but I think it's Bessel van der Kolk. It completely changed my life. I thought for many years that I was a victim, going through a lot of traumatic experiences growing up. I played the victim card very well. Why is me? Why is this happening to me? But I knew that can't really explain why I knew or how I knew. I just always felt like there was a reason I was going through all this trauma. I was kind of forced to deal with it when my marriage started kind of falling apart. Actually, it kind of happened before that. It really started when my son was 3 and we had inclinations that he was autistic. We kind of tried to ignore it, but at 3, you just could not ignore it. I was still playing the victim role in why am I having a son that has autism? I can't handle this. Why is it happening to me? And so I really started my spiritual journey of it really started as a way to relieve stress. So I started going to yoga. After that, that helped me kind of get through it, and that was really the beginning of it. Eventually, years later, my marriage started falling apart, and I really wanted to work on it. We really wanted to try to make things work. So we started going to counseling, marriage counseling, and he said I needed counseling alone, by myself, and together. And of course, I rejected it so hard. I was like, I don't need therapy. You're the one that needed therapy. So it took me a while to get there. Eventually, I started going to therapy. By then, after, this is a couple years, 4 or 5, I'm not really sure, years into already doing yoga. So I'd already tried to start taking things into my own hands. So my first therapy session alone, I said, I have these patterns of behavior that I do. I know exactly what I'm doing. I know where they come from. I just don't know how to get rid of them. And she looks at me and says, well, this was my job to get you to this point. You did all of this work. I can't help you anymore. And it devastated me. It was my first appointment, and she told me she couldn't help me. So I felt lost that I went to a therapist and she couldn't help me. I was like, I can't be helped. But she said, this book, The Body Keeps the Score, you should read that. So I read that, and it completely changed my life. I realized that all of this stuff, all of these patterns of behavior were really layers of trauma. And once I started uncovering the layers through various modalities, I started getting closer to my authentic self. And the closer I got to my authentic self, the closer I got to God or spirit or the divine or the universe or however you want to define it. It just got clearer and clearer. It's like these layers, I just think of them like these blockages or clouds. I like to call it cloudy. I was very clouded. But when I knew the patterns, I needed to change the patterns. I didn't know how to change the patterns. I knew I had to change the patterns because the patterns no longer suited me for my life. I was in a state of fight or flight for a lot of things. Stuff that growing up, we have to kind of create in order to survive, right? And it no longer suited me anymore. I was a grown adult with children, and I didn't need to run and hide from people or from situations. I was safe. My body just didn't feel safe, and my mind didn't feel safe. So I needed help with trying to figure out, how do I get rid of these things? So I thought talk therapy at that point was going to help me. But I will say after reading the book, I did go back to therapy, and she did help me with getting through some stuff. My spiritual path really did start with yoga. And I started this class, and about a couple of weeks into it, I got to this one pose. It's very hard, and I was very bad at it. It was so hard. And you have to memorize it too. So not only is it mental, it's physical. We had to memorize it. I couldn't remember anything. It took me so long to remember stuff that's very easy for everyone else because I am an Ashtanga yoga teacher. So I've never taught a student that was worse than me. So I think that, I do think that this correlates with like my spiritual journey is I'm the worst student. I've been the worst victim. I've been the worst at everything, which allows me to be what I think is like the best teacher because I've been the worst. So I know how to handle it in other people. But I got to this pose where I couldn't do it. Well, first of all, I forgot it. I couldn't remember what it was. And it was the hardest one for me. And I stood there in this room of strangers and cried and cried and cried and eventually ran to the back of the room and hid and tried to find the book to like look up the pose that like I was supposed to do next because I couldn't remember. And then I went back to the mat after my friend consoling me because I don't think I would have been able to go back to the mat alone. Finally, I went back and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I did it and it was great. And then from that moment on, I knew that it was doing something. And the physical, physically feeling better was just a side effect of like what it did mentally for me. It was mentally helping me retrain my brain of getting out of the patterns of being stuck. So that was the beginning. And it's been 7 years. I've just had my 7-year yoga anniversary of changing many patterns from a physical aspect that translates into mental and emotional. My best advice for people that are feeling their kind of psychic gifts happen, first of all, I want to say that we all have this ability. We all have this gift, every one of us. There's no such thing as coincidences. That's the first thing I tell people. There's no such thing. So if you have a feeling that something's going to happen and it happens, it's not a coincidence. It's your intuition. It's your guides helping you. It's part of something bigger than just us. There's something bigger going on. So first thing is pay attention. Second thing is that you're not alone and that these crazy things that we experience and go through, you're not alone in those experiences. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't like to talk about it because it can be very vulnerable. It can be very scary. We don't learn this stuff in school. There's still this like judgment of people that I think our country definitely needs to get over. And as a world, we are kind of collectively raising our vibration, and it's getting easier and more normal. But seek out other like-minded people. A lot of people I tend to energetically bring to me are people in the same kind of experience as me, where we kind of feel alone and isolated. And a lot of people do stay at home and are scared to leave their house because of all of these experiences, and they can't really control it, and they're a little afraid of it. But I think also self-care and boundaries are like two of the most important things. I think what we all want as humans is connection. I think that a lot of healing through connection needs to happen, which is kind of weird for me to say because a lot of my stuff I've dealt with on my own, but I think that was just my journey. I think that there is some of it that needs to happen alone for some of us, and I think that knowing that we're not alone, even if they're not next to us, is still a connection. So I have a friend that lives in Arizona, and she has a lot of similar things than me. But knowing that she's going through similar things
even though she's not next to me experiencing it or talking about it every day with me, I know that she's there. And I know when I have to talk to someone that understands, she's like the one person that totally understands. So I think reaching out, and I also think that I don't want to downplay other people that aren't experiencing these crazy things too. Like my boyfriend is very stuck in his physical body, and he is not sensitive at all to this kind of energetic stuff, and it's only because he's blocking it, but because he's also, has superpower. I mean, we all do, but he's also meant to do this kind of stuff that he's blocking. But reaching out to him and being open, for people like us to be open and vulnerable, I think does help us not to hide who we are, not to hide it. I've been surprised by the people that I've opened up to and seeing how they are still able to try to be there for me, even though they have no idea what I'm talking about.